Well, I think it's about time for another quarter notes. I love doing these. This allows me to talk about 4 albums in quick succession. Succession, that's what I'm looking for. Because these are albums that either I figure you guys want to hear my opinion on, or it's an album that I've been enjoying, but I don't have a whole lot to say about it, but I still kind of want to cover it. Like I don't have enough to say for a full-length album review, and I guess that can be said about all these albums. So yeah, let's dive into it. These are albums that I've been enjoying to certain extents, and I figure it's time to talk about it. So, let's go! The First Congregational Church of Eternal Love and Free Hugs by Kula Shaker, I think it is. Kula Shaker, I think. Oh boy. This was one that was recommended to me actually from, I believe it was Nathan on Shuffle. Correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, this is just like a really fun kind of hodgepodge style of classic rock stylings. Like I feel like if Church of the Cosmic Skull didn't just run their ruts so hard that they literally can't move from their stylings and just repeatedly put out the same album over and over again, this is kind of what we would get. I enjoy that there's like a lot more rock aspect of it, but there's also quite a bit of variety on here. It's not just the same template over and over and over again. We get a little bit of a variety on here as well. So it does kind of remind me of like a Led Zeppelin Physical Graffiti, where they're trying a whole bunch of different styles on here. And for the most part, it works. It's a really good and fun track, good and fun run time. But at the end of the day, there's also nothing really that jumps out at me all that much. Like the best track on here is After the Fall, parts 2 and 3. And mainly that's just because I love a little bit of their longer tracks, and this is the longest track, even though it's kind of just 2 tracks that don't have a separation of it. But yeah, if you're a fan of something a little bit more fun, a little bit more quirky, that is just straight up rock, I think you'll have a good time with it. If you're somebody that wants something a little bit new, something a little bit different, you're going to be a little bit satisfied, but I still think there's not quite enough like new ground covered. Like there's no surprises on this album for sure. There's no surprises, but there is still quite a bit of land that is covered by it. So yeah, this is one that I have no problem streaming, and I think I might eventually download it, but for the time being, it's still a fun time. So yeah, it was a good time. I also love the little interludes of this pastor, talking away to his congregation. I thought that it added a fun little deviations from the music itself. So yeah, I had a great time with it. Three Sides of One by King's X. So King's X is a little bit of a legacy band, if you can believe it. Really hitting it big with Dogma back in 1994. I mean, they got their start back in the 80s, with Out of the Silent Planet back in 1988. They pack a pretty big punch, incorporating some progressive-y tendencies to the overall landscape of kind of like that 80s rock. It's been a hot minute since King's X has been back on the stage. And part of the reason why I haven't covered this in a full-length album review is I'm not a fan of this album. The word cringe gets thrown around quite heavily these days, but this might be one of the few times where it kind of sticks. I don't know. I saw these guys open up for Porcupine Tree when Porcupine Tree was doing their Incident tour, and I was bored to tears. This just isn't quite for me, if I'm being perfectly honest. I find the lead singer's vocals are kind of laughable. Like, it's almost reminding me of like a Randy Newman. Like, I keep thinking of like a Toy Story track on here. I'm just going to put that right out there. This is not for me. None of the tracks really rise to the forefront, and I know this isn't a prog band. I know that this is much more of a rock band, but yeah, there's nothing on here for me really. I tried to listen to it. I gave it 3 or 4 really good spins and really got into it, but I just found myself, I hate to say it, but kind of laughing along the way more often than not. So yeah, this is one that I would ultimately skip. If you're a fan of this album, if you're a fan of this band, I get it. I can see the appeal. It's just not for me. So that's where I'm going to leave it for 3 sides of one. I did not like it. Let's move on. Digital Noise Alliance by Queensry. Yeah, we're going for 2, I guess, legacy bands, both getting their starts in the 80s with Queensryche and King's X. But unlike King's X, that had been away from the scene for a while, Queensryche has been making music for like pretty much since then. This follows up The Verdict back in 2019. That was also following on the heels of Condition Human from 2015. So yeah, they're still pumping out records pretty regularly. Here we are with Digital Noise Alliance. Their latest release was released back in October. I had a couple listens to it back then, and it didn't really, stick all that much. But you're getting kind of the same thing. Queensryche at this point knows what works and what doesn't work, and I feel like this is a very, and I'm not using this as a negative as I normally would with a nomiker like this, but it is a very safe album in that case. It's that very big glam hair metal from the mid to late 80s. It's kind of over the top. It's got a lot of machismo on it. And so if you're a fan of that, I think you're going to have a really good kick out of this album. It's a lot of fun. If you're just looking for, some straight up metal that's hakening back to the 80s, then you're going to have a good time with this one. Yeah, I think that's all I really have about this album. It didn't make a big impression on me, but at no point was I like running to the stereo and trying to turn it off. Yeah, it was just good metal music that hakens back to the 80s. So that's what I've got for Digital Noise Allowance. If I were to rate this one, I would say that it is a stream, but that's kind of all I've got for it. Yeah, let's move on to the last one. A Light for Attracting Attention by The Smile. So this is one that came across my desk time and time again, and I didn't know a lot of the background to it, so I just kind of shrugged it aside, being like, whatever, I don't really care about that. Little did I know that this is, I thought it was just kind of a side project with Tom York from Radiohead and just a couple of his friends. Little did I know that it was also a pairing of the lead guitarist from Radiohead as well. So this is more a side project of Radiohead rather than a side project of Tom York. And I really enjoy this one, I love the fact that this is much more a collaboration between Tom York and Johnny Greenwood, who I didn't realize was the lead guitarist. Yeah. But it does feel much more like a collaboration between these two individuals. It also has the drummer of Tom Skinner, which, man, it sounds so good and so pristine. It's not overly produced. I felt like A Moon-Shaped Pool. It's a lot more organic in its sounding. There is a lot of really good production work on here, but it's not overly produced. It doesn't showcase Tom York's production style of things. It's actually being produced from Radiohead's longtime producer of Nigel Godrich. So yeah, it has that same kind of Radiohead flair, but there's enough individuality and enough differences that it doesn't just feel like a Radiohead clone. There are moments on here that I really love, and I love how guitar-led a lot of these tracks are. This is something that In Rainbows really had going for it, and I feel like they're taking some of the best qualities of that and putting it on here. I'm loving a lot of the more experimentational side of things on here. That's what really drew me to Kid A, and I'm feeling a lot of that on here as well. And there are some moments on here that I feel like Steven Wilson would be writing. In fact, there's one in particular that feels like Raider 2. Yeah, I've been really enjoying this album. This is one that I will be really grooving to in 2023 for sure. If they wanted to continue on with this and leave Radiohead kind of to the wayside, I wouldn't blame them at all. I'm really looking forward to new The Smile tracks, and we'll see if this is a one-off thing or if we get some more from them. So yeah, this is a great one. This is one that I will absolutely pick up in physical format. I think it's a great record if you're a fan of Radiohead, if you're a fan of Tom York, and if you're a fan of this kind of experimental kind of art rock stuff, then you're going to be pleased with it. So yeah, that's what I've got for you guys today. That's what I've got. Those are my 4 albums. I hope you guys enjoyed it. This was one that I've been planning to do for a while, and I was just waiting for, last little bits to kind of fall into place with this one. But yeah, had a great time with them. I hope you did too. And yeah, so tomorrow I've got my last review of the year going up. After that, I'm all kind of done and tapped out. Next week, we've got my my best of 2022. I've got my surprises and disappointments, and I've got the Prague Awards. So I hope you guys tune in for that. I had a lot of fun kind of creating a lot of those. So yeah, that's what I've got. And yeah, let me know what you thought about these 4 albums. If you love them, if you hated them, by commenting down below. Which ones were your favorites? Which ones were your least favorites? Let me know all about that by commenting down below. And I think that's all I've got for you guys today. That's all I got. I hope you guys are doing well. I hope you guys are having a good holiday season. And yeah, be kind to yourself and be kind to others. So that's what I've got. That's what I've got. Thank you all so much for watching. As always, you guys are definitely the best. And until next time, notes out.